It's that glorious time of year and the perfect moment to talk about one of history's most famous wine stories, the passage in the Bible where Jesus turned water into wine. But what does the Bible really say about wine? Was it celebrated or frowned upon? And was it truly wine or just grape juice? All this and more. Merry Christmas and welcome back to the VINVERITY Show. Hello and welcome to a very merry edition of the VINVERITY Show. Today we're going to discuss all about when and how wine is mentioned in the Bible. Now, wine isn't just meaningful in Christianity. It shows up across many religions and ancient cultures as well. In Judaism, wine sanctifies sacred moments like Shabbat and Passover. In ancient Greek religion, wine was linked to the god Dionysus, symbolizing ecstasy, transformation, and truth. In Roman tradition, wine was offered to the gods and used in ritual feasts. In Zoroastrianism, wine symbolized wisdom and divine insight. And even in ancient Egypt, wine was associated with the gods and the afterlife. So across many cultures, wine wasn't just a drink. It's represented joy, truth, connection, and something sacred. In Roman and ancient times, wine was a daily staple, often cited as being diluted with water. And that's because water wasn't always safe to drink. Diluted wine was more stable, portable, and safer. So it traveled with people to work sites, on journeys, and even into wars. In Roman and other ancient cultures, wine was often associated with honesty and exposure. The famous Latin phrase, in vino veritas, which is commonly linked to Pliny the Elder, reflects the belief that wine lowers inhibitions and reveals truth. Now, back to the Bible. There are critics that argue that wine mentioned in the Bible was actually grape juice. However, most scholars agree that biblical wine wasn't grape juice because fermentation was unavoidable in the ancient world. There are also many passages referencing drunk behavior, and the Bible frequently warns against drunkenness, not against wine itself. Symbolism of wine in the Bible is frequent and it's not one-dimensional. Wine carries many different meanings. For example, wine is often symbolized as blessing and joy. It's described as something that brings gladness. It's used in celebrations and in feasts, and it's a symbol of abundance and divine blessing. Even future imagery of renewal includes overflowing of wine. Wine is symbolized as covenant. At the Last Supper, wine represents blood, and it seals a new covenant. Wine is symbolized as forgiveness and relationship and not about excess. Wine is referenced very much as life and health, and it was a part of daily nourishment. Sometimes it is referenced as being used medicinally and given to the weary, the sick, and the weak. Wine is also seen as judgment. For example, the cup of wrath imagery shows consequences and justice. Perhaps this is a reminder that wine has a dual nature, a blessing when used well and a danger when misused. So let's go over some key biblical stories that involve wine. Noah is the first account of drunkenness. This shows the destructive potential of excess, and it's a warning story, not an endorsement. And then, of course, very famously, the wedding at Cana. This was Jesus' first miracle where he turned water into abundant, high-quality wine. This was not a minimal gesture, but something intentionally generous. The Last Supper is where wine becomes a symbol of blood and covenant. It was a shared meal, not a private ritual, and a communion rooted in wine culture. There are many references to Jesus participating in normal social life, including wine drinking. This was often in contrast with John the Baptist, who abstained from wine. So who in the Bible drank wine and who didn't? Wine consumption in the Bible was normative. Most people drank wine regularly, with exceptions like priests while on temple duty, Nazarites, Rechabites, and famously John the Baptist. Abstinence was vocational or symbolic, and it wasn't universal. A key point to wine drinking in the Bible is that drunkenness was consistently condemned, where wine itself was not. Perhaps the biblical emphasis is on self control, responsibility, and community impact. Wine was often framed as a gift that could be misused. When it comes to Jesus and wine specifically, in the Bible, we know that Jesus drank wine. He shared wine in meals and celebrations. And on the cross, he refused wine which was mixed with myrrh, which is a narcotic. He chose full awareness in that moment. This reinforces the importance of wine as being intentional, not for escapism. So, wine across the scripture could represent divine provision, celebration, covenant, and community. On the other side, it could also represent excess, loss of control, and consequence. Wine in the Bible is complex and human, and the Bible doesn't simplify wine into good or bad. It frames wine as a gift requiring wisdom. So, wine in the Bible doesn't seem to be about prohibition or indulgence. It does seem to speak on how something powerful is used to enjoy presence over escape, joy over excess, and meaning over misuse. It seems that wine in the Bible is never quite simple. It's shown as a gift and a warning, a symbol of joy, and also a reminder of responsibility. It appears at weddings and at final meals, in everyday life, and in moments of profound meaning. Rather than giving us a single rule, these stories invite us to think more deeply about intention, moderation, community, and how ordinary things can carry extraordinary symbolism. Wine isn't presented as something to fear or to idolize, but something to understand. And like many ancient texts, its meaning depends on context, culture, and also how it's held. So, whether you approach this topic from faith, history, or simple curiosity, wine in the Bible reminds us that even the most familiar things can have layers, and that truth is often found not in absolutes, but in nuance. And that's it for us today. Merry Christmas, and until next time, in wine there is truth.